Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Mark Bixler. I'm with the 4 internet radio stations that are involved with Kingdom Life Internet Radio Network. And those stations are With God All's Possible Internet Radio, West Central Illinois Internet Radio, North Alabama, South Central Tennessee Internet Radio, and Western Ohio, Eastern Indiana Internet Radio Network. And being joined today by a good friend of mine, Tommy Renfro, and we've talked to him before, and thought now would be a good time to talk to him again. Today, we're having a big day of just programs. We've partnered with Kingdom Life Peoria, and we're doing a Faith Over Fear Day. And of course, this is pre-recorded, but it's airing on September 11th. And we did that intentionally because of it being September 11th. And that's why we entitled it Faith Over Fear. And Tommy, I want to start just again, because it's been a while since we've talked. And some people watching this are on Facebook pages and YouTube channels, and we've kind of broadened out a little bit as to what we've been doing. And for those that maybe don't know you, tell us a little bit about yourself. I will say this: I know Tommy from when he was in high school, junior high and high school actually, and through sports. And I know you through your dad. And your dad is, I know, smiling down from heaven right now with everything that you're doing.
Well, I sure appreciate you having me on, Mark. And also want you to know, since the last time we chatted, I've watched a lot of those old videos that I found online from middle school and high school basketball games that you recorded. We won't say how many years ago. At this point, but I sure hope every day that we're doing something, that I'm doing something to make my dad proud, and miss him every day. So I'm glad he's still having an impact on lives.
I've got to tell you, I'm being joined by my little queen, Tinkerbell. She decided she wanted to get on my lap, so she's definitely a lap cat. But go ahead.
Oh, where do you want me to start, Mark? I'm sorry.
I guess tell us a little bit about your background, because you're a teacher.
I am a teacher.
But you're also a worship leader.
I am a worship leader. Just a little bit about me. I have been an educator since I graduated. I now work for Indiana University at their East Campus in Richmond, Indiana, where I am the field placement coordinator for secondary education. And people say, what do you do? And I say, well, I teach teachers and I train teachers. So I teach methods of instruction for middle school and high school teachers. And then, like you said, I'm also the director of worship arts at Grace Baptist Church in Troy, Ohio. So those are 2 full-time jobs coexisting for sure.
Well, one thing, and I guess the faith over fear with what with you would be, I guess, since we last talked, we've had some major changes take place here in the United States, and that is unfortunately COVID-19, and that has kind of changed things a little bit, how things are done. And I mean, it was something that it changed how we teach. It changed how we worship.
Absolutely. I was going to say in both modalities. For me, I'm also, it's interesting, Mark, because I'm also a doctoral student right now, and my major at IU Bloomington is instructional system design. And I started this before the pandemic occurred. And so every day now is a case study. When we switched at Grace, when we were forced to switch in the spring of 2020 to online worship for a while, it was an interesting bit of getting all of the right tech in the right places and making sure the sound quality, and because of that experiment, we've continued to get better and better and better in those aspects as we move forward. I guess the silver lining from that has been that it has created opportunities for us to look at how we present the gospel in both physical and virtual platforms.
And you're right, because with my involvement with Kingdom Life Peoria, it has it kind of had us. We had to look at different ways to do things. We about a little over a year ago, we did I think it was in May of last year, we did an event, and I actually, they already had some people, got some people lined up, but you were on our radar screen to contact to be part of a online concert. We had about 5 different groups that came on. And we had a co-host, or a host, I should say. Well, they were co-hosts because they were husband and wife. And they introduced each of the acts, and then you could donate, or I don't want to say donate, but give to them finances. They had a link that we put on, and because that was a difficult time for artists. And we didn't, it wasn't just for Christian groups. We wanted to be the Jesus to the music community, because they couldn't go into places where they normally could go into.
I tell you what, Mark, I did tons of things online in the midst of, especially when everything was shut down. As a professor at IU, we did a little thing called performing profs. And so I played, I think, 3 shows through the IU Facebook page for the community. I did multiple different nights of combinations between oldies and country songs, and then worship nights. Did worship nights through my page and through our church page on Facebook and YouTube, just trying to be a light in people's darkness in those aspects, like you said, and just share the love of Christ with people.
And that's important. And that's kind of why we've been, I've been in touch with Wes Lynch at Radiant Lighthouse. I've been in touch with Jeff Harper at EUM, and we're reaching out to some other churches in the Miami Valley. And we're not ready to announce it yet, although you think I am because I'm talking about it. We're very close to establishing a second chapter of Kingdom Life, and we've got that Kingdom Life Peoria here, and we're very close to establishing that in the Miami Valley, a Kingdom Life Miami Valley. And it's not just for men, it's for women, and it's for kids too. And teaching them how to study the Bible, and it's for organizations, churches that can come together and then go out to the streets and go to the individuals who actually need to hear about Jesus and salvation. And we're excited. I'm excited because I believe God's leading me into full-time Christian ministry with several things, including the 4 internet radio stations, to basically, for a lack of a better word, to be able to focus on them, because I've got a tent making job with a radio station here in Canton full time, and this will give me the freedom that I'll be able to do to work with those stations more closely and more intently, but also to reach out to other areas in the United States to form Kingdom Life chapters that would be under the Kingdom Life Peoria umbrella, but it's going to mean some traveling. And I'm excited what God has planned.
It's really invigorated me talking to you already, Mark, about your conviction in God's direction for you to be the hands and feet and go out into the streets and preach the good news.
Well, I appreciate that, but I give God all the glory because I'm telling you,
Hmm.
it's when you talk street ministry, you're talking about going into areas that may be high crime areas. And I talked to Connie McEldowney from Rustic Hope earlier, and you know, we said, you know what, if something happens and God brings us home, what a way. You're out ministering to others about Jesus. And what a way to go if God would happen to call you home. But I know he puts a hedge of protection around us, and I'm excited about what he is about to do and what he is doing. And one of those things is through you yes, you do worship for a church in Troy, Ohio, in Miami County, just north of Dayton, for those of you who are watching or listening to this and aren't necessarily familiar with the Miami Valley. But what you mentioned, and I found that too, with COVID, it forced churches to, you know, it was almost like, even though it wasn't of God, God allowed it to happen because he wanted churches to do more than what they were doing.
Well, it's forced us to get out of the monotony of what Sunday to Sunday looks like, and it's forced us to think about people in different ways and think about the lost in different ways. Think about missions and ministries in different ways that reach out into virtual platforms where people live. And that's been, I think, a blessing to see the growth that we had from our online presence, and then how that's brought people back and brought in more families now in our physical space, and to see the kingdom spread to the unchurched that have been coming in because they watched somebody that posted a video here or there, that have been coming in to get the word.
Well, and I talked a little about going to parks and apartment complexes and going to where the lost are. And the internet is one of those places that the lost are. And what we found I am the media director at the church I go to, Wesley United Methodist Church here in Canton. And what we found is there were people who were unchurched that were watching the church services.
Absolutely, because when you come into somebody's home, it becomes less invasive, and then God works on someone's heart in a way that allows them to be convicted, and allows them to be uplifted, and allows them to get the word into their heart and exemplified in their everyday lives. And I think that is something that many, that the body of Christ around this country and the world have seen as a result of this. Maybe a forced experiment that has shown some positives, and even more, I think, on the backside of this COVID pandemic that we're in.
And it's people that wouldn't have darkened the doors of the church, of a church building, I should say, that are maybe watching this. And that's the same thing with the Kingdom Life. And I know Greenville's got some areas that I think street ministry, we could work with the area churches. Troy has some areas like that. And it's not just, I don't want to say that it's just the areas that are high crime. There's areas, there's apartments that you can go into that are maybe more upper class apartments. They need Jesus just as much as the as the people in the high crime areas?
I'm going to go back on this, Mark, and think about that last idea about getting into people's lives. And when we were all forced inside during this pandemic, I think it forced us to get creative with how we communicate as humans. And one of the things that we have going on at Grace is called Man Up. It's a men's ministry. And this year we thought, oh, this is going to be really a tough year. And we have this big thing called Man Up Palooza in the summertime, which is a whole weekend of games and competitions and worship and word. And what we noticed was some of the men started having virtual Bible studies within the confines and not being able to get to spaces. And we almost doubled the amount of men that we had come to this year's event as a result of those outreaches that were not members of our church body, which I thought was just wonderful to see 70 plus guys come together for a weekend and worship. And, you know, I thought that was the neat thing that happened as a result of being able to reach into where guys were and yeah, just love on people.
Something that you mentioned right there made me think of my experience through all this. With being the media director, I'm taking care of what goes on the screen for each service. And so as a result, I am part of the worship service, but I don't actually, and even though I'm listening to it or hearing it, I'm not necessarily, it's not sinking in.
I was going to say, stop right there. And the media director and the sound guy are the offensive line.
Yes.
NFL starting this weekend.
Yes.
Nope. As the worship leader, I can't do anything without you making it happen. So
I agree. I can, if the pastor gets a little too long, I can shut him off.
Shut him down.
I would never do that. But anyway, what I've had to do is when I get home, I found a couple of church services from not even in Illinois. I just happened to tune in one Sunday during COVID to Church of the Highlands in Alabama and now in Georgia, part of Georgia. And I really liked the message that the pastor, Chris Hodge, had. So I started watching that. And now that's one of the churches that when I come home from church, I sit down, and after I do my laundry on Sunday, I sit down and I watch Church of the Highlands. And that way I'm getting fed. Then I had another friend who sent me a link to a church out of Indianapolis, Traders Point Community Church. And I watched that and I was like, no, this is like Church of the Highlands, except it's a little closer. So now I watch one and then I watch the other church on Sunday. So now I'm getting fed by two churches. And that wouldn't have happened if it hadn't have been for COVID. And I just I'm astonished at what God has done through COVID-19, and I'm excited about what He's continuing to do, because I'm telling you, these churches are growing.
Yes.
And they will probably continue to grow because they've learned that they have to continue a presence online now as well.
I absolutely think so. And churches are getting more savvy and producing things that, whether we like it or not, we always want to balance that line between what is performance versus and what is worship, and who we are as worshipers and how that's presented. But at the same time, we want the things that are translated in online formats to be in the world, but not of it, right? Because those people are scrolling through social media, and then if I'm not, well, why would I watch this kind of thing? And so now we're trying to draw people in, to why we're singing and why we're preaching, and we're trying to make, bring people in to the kingdom. And one of the ways is to make things that they want to click on.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a very good point. And I one thing that really drew me to Church of the Highlands is the Pastor Hodges said, "My job is to point you to Jesus."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "You got me," because that's important. And I told Connie this. I went through a lot in the last year, and one of the things that through all of this, I had a gentleman that did the same thing, and but he encouraged me not just to listen uh, to put my focus on Jesus. He focused not only he focused on that, but he said also to pray, worship, and not only worship but sing with your heart. And all of a sudden, a little flicker in my heart turned into a huge flame. The Holy Spirit just, Satan was just, I told Connie this, Satan, the song, "This Little Light of Mine," the one verse, "Don't let Satan blow it out." Well, he was pretty close to blowing out my life. And the Holy Spirit just caught wind, gave me a fresh wind, and that little flicker is a huge flame right now. And through that, some ministries are probably going to be starting through Kingdom Life. And I'm just excited what God is doing, and not just my life, but other lives as well, because I can see God moving in a way that I haven't seen in a while. But the one thing that God did was the Holy Spirit revealed to me that I was taking my faith for granted. And I think we do that. A lot of us do that. We don't realize it, but we do. And suddenly I realized that that's got to change. And my faith was strong, but I was just going through the motions. And that was hard to accept. But once I did and realized what I needed to do differently, things changed quickly.
We all have those mini Damascus Road moments, right? Where God has to knock us in the face sometimes and let us see the light and open up to the revelations in which that we walk in those open doors. And it sounds like so many cool open doors right now for you, Mark, with Kingdom Life, and how this is bridging across the country and in those small fires and those open doors.
Well, you not only are the worship leader, I think it's kind of taken maybe a little bit of a backseat to a certain extent, but you have recorded some things as well.
Oh, it's been a while. I think I've done 7 albums, I believe. God really blessed me with lots of opportunities to play on stages with big artists and some of my heroes like Toby Mac, and work with the guys from Third Day, and open up for people like Mercy Me. And it was just a lot of humbling experiences as I look back. And probably the biggest one was I was on label for 3 years in Nashville with Life Stage Records and Mission House Music. And after the label kind of folded up, I was back to being independent again and didn't know what was going on, and just kind of reached out to my hero, Scotty Wilbanks, who was with Third Day at the time. And he had produced the last 3 Third Day records, and I said, well, I might as well send him some stuff. So he called me a week later and said, "Hey, brother, I really like your stuff. I'd be interested in doing this." So getting to build a friendship and a relationship with him and his family and going to Atlanta to record that project was probably the highlight of me as a Christian recording artist. Going into the studio and seeing you get to write your name on the wall. So um, mine is between I Need to Breathe is on the wall,
Wow.
then me, and then below it the guys from it was the museum at the time, but that was just cool to be beside Need to Breathe in the same studio and Mac Powell in the same studio. So we just actually went and saw Scotty last weekend because he, after third day, retired. He went back and was just recording, but then got a call. And so now he plays for Luke Bryan in the country music. But such a cool thing to make partnerships and friendships like that and to meet really good people, really godly people in this industry.
Yeah, I agree. I've been to some recording artists like Jason Gray. I've gotten to meet him several times,
He's a real guy for
and
sure.
he is. And I want to tell you, and I'll probably break down, but I was reading one of his posts within the last couple months, and it talked about his breakup in his marriage and how low he had gotten. And I was right there with him. Uh, Shed a lot of tears reading that because it did spoke to my heart because of what I was going through. So I I think I've got and I sent him a message as well. Um, so next time he's in the Peoria area or someplace that I'm at, I'm probably going to have a nice long conversation with him, and just talk. Because sometimes that's what you got to do.
We are all broken vessels who are just trying to stay in God's will. I was listening to, you go through people and some podcasts that kind of keep me going. And the other day I heard one with probably, this is an interesting conversation, but on a different line, on a different part of life, comedian John Christ, who's I love his stuff and how real he is about things that occur in the church that sometimes that we push to the side, but that happen. And the whole thing was him breaking down about how the enemy had brought him into a place of despair and addiction and things that real things that we don't like to talk about, relationship issues that we don't like to talk about, addictions that we don't like to talk about. And people always say things about, well, I won't listen to this person or that person or do this because they did this. And I said, what? Um, um, God allows us to go through
Yep.
things so that we can uplift other people and so that we can be the support that are that's needed. But those are interesting conversations where, especially as a worship guy, you're trying to pick music, and people always have an opinion. Well, I don't that song because this person did this in their life that happened here. And said, hey, we're all broken vessels on the same path to try to seek righteousness within the blood of the cross, within Christ's love for us. So yeah, that's and Jason Gray's testimony because of that, obviously has made a huge impact on you, Mark, and other people as well.
Absolutely. So we're talking with Tommy Renfro. He's from Darke County, Ohio.
Cornfields, that's what you say.
I'm going to say, because most people will recognize, I'm going to mention 3 towns, and most people will recognize those towns that are listening or watching this. Richmond, Indiana, Dayton, Ohio, and Springfield, Ohio are probably 3 of the most recognizable towns in West Central Ohio. But anybody who knows history will recognize this town, this person, Annie Oakley. She is from, or I should say, what I'm trying to think of her real name, Phoebe Moses, I think. I'll have to look that up. But she's from Willowdale. She was born in Willowdale, and is buried in Brock, which is in Darke County as well. So you might recognize Greenville, Ohio as well. But definitely Richmond, Dayton, and Springfield are probably the three towns that most people are going to recognize. And if you fly into Dayton, you'll recognize Vandalia. So, but anyway, Tommy, it's been great catching up, and I'm looking forward to making several trips to the Miami Valley when we get the Kingdom Life chapter started there, and hopefully meeting with churches, and hopefully we'll be able to get many churches involved, because one thing that this does is it allows some of your smaller churches that are just small enough that they don't have a men's group, they don't have a women's group. They're lucky if they've got something for kids, and this enables them so that we can work together with some of the larger churches and get some of these smaller churches hooked up with some larger churches, so that their individuals can be a part of small groups. Because I think small groups and discipleship are very important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's where ministry oozes out in authenticity. Both of those aspects of the church. It's not the hour to hour and a half that we spend in worship, which is what we need. We need word, and we need worship, and we need refueled, but it's the way that we apply that in small groups and external ministries, and how the light of Christ shines through us in our everyday walk outside of those four walls. That's where the work happens.
Amen. And I had somebody point this out to me. The hour to hour and a half church, that's for ministering to people who are in the church for growth, to be fed. Then we're to go out and take that word to the world.
It's a great representation of what should happen every week.
Absolutely. Tommy, again, thank you for taking the time and talking with us, and look forward to doing this. We'll have to do it quicker than a year and a half.
Absolutely. Yeah, not a problem at all.
So
thank you so much for having me, Mark. I appreciate it and look forward to all the great things you got going on here.
I'm Mark Bixler, and certainly glad to be with you here today. And I know Rob's got many things going on with this fear or faith over fear. And make sure you tune in our YouTube channel. I haven't really encouraged that a lot, but check out Kingdom Life Internet Radio Network YouTube channel, and see some of the podcasts that are there and some of the interviews. Tommy's first interview was up there, so you can check that out as well. Again, Tommy, thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
I'm Mark Bixler for Kingdom Life Internet Radio Network and for Kingdom Life Peoria. Have a great day.